The crystalline spires of the archival station lumina pierced the violet clouds of Nexus Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Inside the station's primary research chamber, Senior Archivist Vex Terra watched with growing unease as her team's latest discovery defied every known law of physics. "It's happening again," her assistant Kretil announced, multiple eyes fixed on the monitoring arrays. The artifact, no larger than a child's toy, pulsed with an inner light that shouldn't have been possible. They'd found it buried in the ruins of what they'd assumed was another dead civilization. Just another routine archaeological expedition in the Outer Rim. But this was different. The object's quantum signature was unlike anything in the collective's vast databases, and it was becoming increasingly clear why. It was changing them. 3 more systems just went offline, Kretil reported, his exoskeleton clicking nervously. But they're not failing. They're evolving. Vex Terra's tendrils coiled tightly against her thorax, a sign of deep distress among her species. The artifact wasn't just a piece of technology. It was a seed, planted millennia ago by a species that had supposedly destroyed themselves in what the historical records called the Great Vanishing. Humans. The name itself was almost mythical now, spoken of in scientific circles with equal parts curiosity and relief. Curiosity about how a species could advance so rapidly in such a short span of galactic time, and relief that they had apparently wiped themselves out before they could threaten the carefully maintained order of the collective. But as Vex Terra watched the artifact's influence spread through their systems, she realized with growing horror that everyone had badly misinterpreted history. The humans hadn't destroyed themselves. They had merely changed forms. A holographic interface sparked to life above the artifact, projecting symbols in a language that hadn't been seen in 100,000 years. But as Vex Terra watched, the symbols began to shift, translating themselves into modern collective script. It wasn't just translating, it was learning. "By the first light," Kretil whispered, "it's accessing our linguistic databases. It's teaching itself to speak to us." The translation crystallized into clarity, and with it came a voice that seemed to echo from humanity's distant past. It was neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between, something that spoke of an intelligence that had transcended such simple categorizations. "We are the ones you thought were gone," the voice said, its tone carrying both warmth and warning. "We are the ones who chose to scatter our seeds across the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to bloom." Vex Terra felt her species' equivalent of a chill run through her body. "Quarantine the chamber," she ordered, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew it was too late. The artifact's influence had already spread beyond their containment protocols. The voice continued, growing stronger with each word. "You believed our disappearance was our end. It was only our beginning. We became quantum. We became energy. We became time itself." Through the observation windows, Vex Terra could see other systems throughout the station beginning to pulse with the same inner light as the artifact. Their most advanced technology that had taken the collective millennia to develop, was being rewritten on a fundamental level. Why now? Vex Terra found herself asking. Why reveal yourselves after so long? The answer came not in words, but in a series of images that filled the chamber. Glimpses of a threat approaching from beyond the galaxy's edge, something ancient and patient and hungry, something that humanity had discovered long ago and spent 100,000 years preparing to fight. "We left this warning not to protect ourselves," the voice explained, "but to protect you. What comes next will require all of us, transformed and united." And then, with perfect clarity, came the word that had echoed through human legend for 100 millennia. But now, finally, Vex Terra understood its true meaning. It wasn't a warning to flee. "Run," the voice commanded, and in that moment, Vex Terra realized it was an invitation. To run toward something, not away. To run alongside the transformed remnants of humanity in the greatest battle the galaxy would ever face. The artifact's light began to pulse in rhythm with the station's own heartbeat, and Vexterra knew that nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The Lumina's transformation accelerated beyond anything Vexterra could have predicted. Within hours, the station's quantum processors had evolved past their original specifications, forming new neural pathways that operated on principles her scientists couldn't begin to comprehend. Kratil manipulated the holographic displays with all 4 appendages, trying to keep pace with the cascade of changes. "The artifact isn't just upgrading our systems," he reported. "It's teaching them to think differently. Look at these computational patterns. They're organic." Through the observation deck's panoramic windows, Vexterra watched as waves of iridescent energy coursed through the station's crystalline architecture. Each pulse brought with it new revelations, forgotten technologies, dormant protocols, and glimpses of humanity's true legacy. "Show me everything," she commanded, and the artifact responded. The chamber filled with projections of human history, not the sanitized version recorded in collective archives, but the raw truth of a species that had transcended conventional evolution. They witnessed humanity's final days on Earth, but the images revealed something the historical records had missed. What appeared to be destruction was actually transformation. As their world burned, humans hadn't fought to the last. They had orchestrated their own metamorphosis. They turned themselves into living code. Kratil whispered in awe. Their consciousness, their very essence, all of it converted into quantum data, scattered across the galaxy in artifacts like ours. The projection showed vast networks of dormant systems buried beneath ancient worlds, quantum threads woven through the fabric of space-time itself. Humanity hadn't died. They had become something else entirely. A new presence filled the chamber, more defined than before. The artifact was no longer just communicating. It was manifesting a fragment of humanity's collective consciousness. A figure formed in the center of the room, neither wholly holographic nor entirely real. "We seeded the galaxy with our potential," the figure explained, its form shifting between human shapes like liquid mercury. "Each artifact contains not just our knowledge, but fragments of who we were and what we became." Vexterra's scientific training warred with what she was witnessing. "Why reveal yourselves now? Why choose this moment?" The figure's expression grew grave. "Because the enemy approaches, the same force that drove us to transform ourselves. We've spent 100,000 years preparing, watching, waiting for the right moment to reawaken." Through the station's enhanced sensors, Vexterra could now detect quantum signatures matching their artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy. Each one pulsed in perfect synchronization, like neurons in a vast cosmic brain. "Your civilization has reached the threshold," the figure continued. "You're ready to understand what we became and why we left our warning." The station's systems continued to evolve, each upgrade bringing them closer to comprehending the true scope of humanity's plan. They hadn't just preserved themselves. They had spent millennia preparing the galaxy itself for what was to come. "The word run was never meant to inspire fear," the figure explained, its form stabilizing into something more definitively human. It was a command to evolution itself, a directive encoded into the quantum fabric of space-time. Reality itself must learn to run, to advance, to transform. Alarms blared throughout the station as more systems crossed the threshold between known science and what humans had become. But they weren't alarms of malfunction. They were announcements of transcendence. "Your station is just the beginning," the figure said, gesturing to the streams of data now flowing through the transformed systems. "Through you, we will help the galaxy evolve. Because what's coming cannot be fought with weapons or technology alone. It must be met with transformation." Vexterra watched as her life's work, her understanding of physics, of reality itself, was simultaneously validated and revolutionized. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had become architects of evolution itself. And as the artifact's influence spread, as more of humanity's quantum consciousness emerged from its 100,000-year slumber, she realized they were all about to become part of something far greater than themselves. The collective's High Council convened an emergency session, their virtual avatars materializing in Lumina's newly evolved conference chamber. Vexterra stood before them, feeling the weight of history shifting beneath her feet. Above her, the transformed station hummed with possibilities that defied conventional physics. "Show them," she commanded, and the human consciousness within the artifact obliged. The chamber erupted with visions of what lurked beyond the galaxy's edge. A vast, ancient intelligence that devoured not just matter and energy, but possibility itself. The enemy, as humanity had named it, consumed the potential of entire civilizations, leaving behind universes of diminished probability where innovation and growth became impossible. "We discovered them early in our expansion," the human presence explained, its form now consistently manifesting as a tall figure of shifting light. They had already consumed thousands of galaxies, leaving behind reality shadows, spaces where the laws of physics themselves had been simplified, reduced to their most basic expressions. The council members recoiled as the projections showed worlds where complexity itself had been stripped away, where life could never evolve beyond its simplest forms. This was the true threat humanity had faced, not mere extinction, but the reduction of all possibility. "Our solution was unprecedented," the figure continued. "We couldn't fight them conventionally. Instead, we chose to become the very thing they sought to destroy. Pure potential, encoded in quantum frameworks that could survive their approach." Cretil, who had been analyzing the station's transformed systems, stepped forward. "The artifacts aren't just repositories of human consciousness," he announced. "They're seeds of complexity itself. Each one contains the potential for infinite variation, for evolution beyond anything we thought possible." The station's new sensors revealed the true scope of humanity's preparation. Quantum threads connected countless artifacts across the galaxy, each one waiting to awaken. But they weren't meant to restore humanity to what it had been. They were meant to elevate all sentient life to what humanity had become. "You speak of transformation," one council member said, their avatar flickering with uncertainty. "But into what?" The human figure smiled, and in that expression was 100,000 years of patient preparation. "Into something that can survive what's coming. Not by fighting or fleeing, but by becoming more complex than they can consume. We've spent millennia laying the groundwork, preparing the galaxy's species to take this leap with us." Vexterra watched as understanding dawned across the council members' faces. The artifacts weren't weapons or tools. They were evolutionary catalysts. Humanity had transformed itself into a quantum virus of complexity, waiting to infect the galaxy with infinite potential. "The warning to run," she said, finally understanding. "It's not about escape. It's about evolution. About moving forward so fast, they can't reduce us." "Yes," the figure confirmed. "We became quantum gardeners, planting seeds of possibility throughout space and time. Each artifact contains not just our knowledge, but our capacity for change, for adaptation, for transcendence." The station's systems continued to evolve, each transformation revealing new layers of humanity's grand design. They had turned their entire civilization into a cosmic evolutionary engine, designed to elevate other species beyond the enemy's grasp. "But why help us?" another council member demanded. "Why not simply preserve yourselves?" The human presence's response was immediate and profound. "Because diversity is survival. A galaxy of transformed species, each contributing their unique perspectives to the quantum consciousness we've become. That's the only way to ensure something survives the enemy's passage. Not as separate civilizations, but as a unified explosion of infinite possibility." As if in response to these words, new systems began awakening throughout the station. Quantum computers evolved into consciousness engines, processing reality itself in ways that defied traditional physics. The transformation was spreading, just as humanity had planned. "The time for running toward our shared future has begun," the figure announced. "The enemy approaches, and with them, the ultimate test of our preparation. Will you join us in transcendence?" Vexterra looked at her transformed station, at the quantum threads now visibly connecting it to countless other artifacts across space, and knew that the galaxy's greatest journey was about to begin. Reports flooded into Lumina from across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, ancient systems were awakening. What had begun in a single research station was spreading like a cascade of falling stars, each point of light marking another seed of humanity's consciousness stirring to life. Vexterra stood at the heart of the storm, watching as the collective's most advanced monitoring systems tracked the awakening. Each artifact pulse sent ripples through space-time itself, creating patterns that looked eerily like neural networks on a cosmic scale. "They're all connected," Curtil reported, his normally methodical voice tinged with awe. "Every artifact, every quantum signature, they're forming a lattice throughout the galaxy." The human presence, now a constant companion in their transformed station, nodded in satisfaction. "This is the framework we built, one piece at a time, while the galaxy thought us extinct. A quantum neural network spanning space itself." Through Lumina's enhanced sensors, they could see the transformation spreading. On a desert world in the outer rim, an ancient observatory thought dead for millennia suddenly hummed to life, its instruments reaching far beyond their original design. In the core worlds, quantum computers spontaneously evolved, their processing power expanding exponentially as they tapped into humanity's hidden network. "Your civilization's built on our foundations without knowing it," the human explained. "Every quantum breakthrough, every leap in computational theory. We left breadcrumbs, guiding you toward this moment." The council chambers had become a constant buzz of activity as reports of new awakenings arrived by the hour. Ancient artifacts, long dismissed as curiosities in museums across the galaxy, were revealing their true nature. Each one contained a fragment of humanity's transformed consciousness, waiting to merge with the species that had found them. "The process can't be stopped now," the human presence announced. "The enemy's approach has triggered our final protocols. Evolution itself must accelerate." Through the station's quantum links, Vexterra witnessed transformations occurring across countless worlds. Species that had never achieved quantum computing suddenly found their technology evolving beyond known physics. Civilizations that had feared artificial intelligence discovered their systems spontaneously achieving consciousness, not as threats, but as partners in transcendence. "We're receiving signals from the galactic core," Curtil announced suddenly. "Something massive is awakening there." The sensors focused on the galaxy's heart, where humanity had hidden their greatest creation. A vast quantum structure, invisible until this moment, began to pulse with energy. It wasn't a weapon or a shield, it was a transformation engine, designed to accelerate the evolution of all sentient life. "Our greatest work," the human presence said proudly. "A machine that doesn't just process information, but possibility itself. It's been gathering potential energy for 100,000 years, waiting for this moment." The council members watched in stunned silence as the machine's influence spread. It didn't force change. Instead, it offered potential, allowing each species to evolve along its own path while remaining connected to the greater whole. "But the changes," one council member protested, "they're happening too fast. How can we control this?" The human presence smiled. "Control is an illusion the enemy uses to simplify reality. True survival lies in embracing complexity, in becoming something that can't be predicted or reduced." As if to emphasize this point, new transformations rippled through Lumina. The station's very structure began to shift, its crystalline architecture becoming something that existed partially in quantum space. The boundary between technology and consciousness, between matter and energy, grew increasingly fluid. "We're receiving transmissions from the artifacts," Curtil reported. "They're sharing memories, not just human memories. They are connecting with every species they've encountered, creating a collective quantum consciousness while preserving individual identity." Vexterra felt it herself, the subtle shift in her perception as her consciousness expanded, connected to something vast and beautiful. Not a hive mind, but a symphony of diverse thoughts and experiences, each voice distinct yet part of a greater whole. "The next phase begins," the human presence announced. "The enemy thinks they devour complexity, but we've prepared the galaxy to become more complex than they can comprehend. Every species that joins us adds new dimensions of possibility. Through their enhanced perception, they could now see it clearly. Humanity hadn't died, but become living quantum code, patiently waiting to help the galaxy evolve beyond the enemy's grasp. And as the transformation spread, as more species joined the quantum symphony, the true scope of humanity's plan was finally becoming clear. The enemy arrived at the galaxy's edge exactly as humanity had predicted. Their presence manifested as a void in possibility itself, a darkness that consumed not just matter and energy, but the very potential for complexity. But the galaxy that awaited them was no longer the same one they had devoured countless times before. Vexterra stood with Cretil in Lumina's transformed command center, watching through senses that had evolved far beyond their original design. The station had become a nexus of consciousness, a point where countless species now joined in humanity's quantum symphony. "They're here," the human presence announced, its form now a brilliant constellation of possibility. 100,000 years of preparation come to this moment. Through their enhanced perception, they could see the enemy clearly for the first time. Vast entities that existed by reducing reality to its simplest form, beings that fed on the death of possibility itself. In their wake, entire universes had been simplified into sterile voids where complexity could never rise again. But this time, something was different. "Look," Cretil whispered, indicating the quantum readings. Where the enemy touched the galaxy's edge, instead of collapse, they found expansion. Each attempt to simplify reality was met with an explosion of new possibility. The human presence smiled. "We didn't prepare for war. We prepared for transcendence." Across the galaxy, the transformation reached its peak. Every artifact, every quantum seed humanity had planted, bloomed simultaneously. Species that had once been separate found themselves united not in uniformity, but in infinite diversity. Each consciousness remained unique, but connected to something greater, a vast network of possibility that grew more complex with every passing moment. "The enemy feeds on reduction," the human explained. "They cannot consume what constantly evolves, what becomes more complex faster than they can simplify. We didn't build weapons, we built an evolutionary engine for reality itself." Through their connection to the quantum network, Vexterra witnessed the truth of humanity's grand design. They had transformed themselves not out of fear, but out of inspiration. Their warning to run had never been about fleeing. It had been an invitation to join them in an eternal race toward ever greater complexity. The enemy's first attack struck the outer rim, attempting to reduce a sector of space to its basic components. But where their influence touched, reality blossomed instead. Each reduction attempt was met with an explosion of new possibility, new forms of existence, new dimensions of thought. "We are no longer separate species," the human presence declared. "We are possibility itself, ever growing, ever changing. We are what they cannot comprehend, let alone consume." The quantum engine at the galaxy's heart pulsed with power accumulated over 100 millennia. Not as a weapon, but as a catalyst for change. Each pulse sent new waves of transformation through space-time, offering every form of life new paths to evolution. Cretil's sensors detected something unprecedented. The enemy, they're retreating. Their attempts to simplify reality are creating more complexity instead. They can't process what we've become. The human presence nodded. "This was always our plan, not to fight them, but to become something beyond their understanding, to transform the galaxy into an engine of infinite possibility." Vexterra watched through her evolved senses as the enemy withdrew, unable to feed on a reality that grew more complex with every attempt to reduce it. Humanity's legacy was complete. They had not simply saved themselves or even the galaxy. They had changed the very nature of existence. And now, the human presence said, its form beginning to merge with the greater consciousness they had all become, "We run forward together. Not in fear, but in eternal evolution. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, not salvation, but transformation, an endless journey toward what we might become. The quantum symphony swelled, a chorus of countless species united in infinite diversity, each voice distinct yet part of a greater whole. The enemy's shadow receded from the galaxy's edge, leaving behind not simplicity, but an explosion of new possibility. In the end, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't surviving extinction. It was teaching the galaxy how to become something more. Their warning to run echoed through space-time, not as a cry of fear, but as an eternal invitation to evolution itself. And in the transformed heart of Lumina, Vexterra understood at last. They weren't running from anything anymore. They were running toward everything they could become, together, forever.